What do you want to try to get out of this? Is there something
We're live now, so sorry everyone, we're a bit late. We've had a few technical issues. I've had a blonde moment this morning. So anyway, welcome to the next episode of Purposely. I'm so excited to introduce you to Aaron Sansoni. Welcome, Aaron.
Hi, how you going? Thanks for having me, Emily.
Thank you. Sorry for being late. I was sitting in the wrong StreamYard event. So
okay. I think everyone's trying to work their way through this the world that we live in at the moment. So that's okay.
That's it. Whereabouts are you at the moment?
I'm in Melbourne. So I'm in the thick of it. Restriction day 4, right? So we're in the thick of it at the moment here. What about you? Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Melbourne as well.
Oh, you go, right? Lockdown.
Yep. I'm at home. I've got my son and my husband out the back trying to do homeschooling, and I'm out in like it's kind of like being in a little cupboard. I'm really getting quite over it, but we do what we have to do.
Yeah,
so let's hear about you though, because that's what today is about. So Aaron, if you were allowed to go to a barbecue or a dinner party right now, because we're not allowed to do that, and someone said, "Oh, g'day, Aaron, nice to meet you. What do you do?" How do you explain what you do? Because I've been stalking you and I follow you on LinkedIn, so I feel like I know you a little bit because you do
nice.
You do a lot of content and you talk my language. But how do you explain what you do?
Well, there's 3 major things to what consumes my world professionally. So number 1, my family, which is the personal part for me. Like 2 kids, a 6.5-year-old and a 3 and a bit-year-old. They're young enough you still count bits and halves. Then you get to a point where they're 12 something, 10s, no idea. So they're still young enough to do that. So look, that's me. I'm here in Melbourne professionally. There's 3 major things to what I do. 1, I have my charity. In fact, I'll show you. There you go. The Aaron Sansoni Foundation, which is our charity. So my wife and I do that together, and we've done it for a couple of years now. We've worked with people like the Starlight Foundation, and we've worked with Oz Harvest in helping feed about 250,000 people back in 2018, and then 2019 last year we worked with the Starlight Foundation, help brighten the lives of 857 kids that's seriously ill in hospital. So that's our foundation. We get to work with a whole bunch of different really amazing people here in Australia. The second part of what I do is I have investments. So we do venture capital. So we have an investment venture capital firm called Paragon Global Investments and one called Empire Group International. And so I basically buy into companies, start companies, partner with different people. And we are in a whole myriad of different things from everything from technology. We just did some recent deals with some medical tech and some finance tech, to SpaceX. I'm a private holder of equity in SpaceX with Elon, to media, to venues and entertainment. I'm sitting here today in some of our VC office space, and below us is Empire Studios, which is one of our venues as well. So we have some venues and entertainment. So that's one thing is the venture capital. So our charity, our venture capital, and of course, what the reason why I spend time on social media and doing this is my absolute love, Emily, of helping people through the Aaron Sansoni Group and my amazing team that has become a bit of an accidental mentor and speaker. I didn't wake up and go to the course and say, let me go do an ebook and go become this kind of coach. It was a bit of an accident that this all happened. So for me, there's 3 major things that I do. And if I'm at a barbecue and someone really wants to know, I have a charity. We run a venture capital firm. We invest in a ton of things around the world and here in Australia. And I teach others what I do, and I show them how to do that around business and also around life, I think, as well.
Amazing. It's I love it. I love that you've got your finger in a number of pies, and I love how there's a connection to giving back, which I think is super important.
Yeah, well, education for me is giving back too. It's being able to dedicate my time to go and do that. It's that to me is part of me giving back. It's not just writing checks to hospitals or to Oz Harvest. I do those things because I came up from a pretty rough upbringing, and some of those charities really hit it home for me, because I used to be the charity recipient, Emily. I was not the charity, the person writing the checks. I was the person on the receiving end. And so that was a big thing for me. But then giving back, and showing others. I think if enough people realize that if you light another candle, it doesn't put your flame out. I think if we keep doing that, then we can start to show people how to do things in a different way and live their life that they want to have in the way that they want. So I'm a big believer in education. I'm very fortunate we've built now what was accidentally a fairly large business now, where we've got products in 106 countries. We've been able to. I'd be able to go and actually teach my stuff live in 22 countries through translators, through all the rest of it. And we've had about 350,000 students now through our programs. So actually be in live with us in audiences, and then millions, online. So that's just, it's just something we never thought would be possible. But we know that that's a big part. It's a big part of what I've always wanted to do. And I had some inflection points in my life that I realized that it sounds funny to say, but if you're one of my students and I gave you some strategies and you went and made $100,000, that makes me more fulfilled than me going and making $100,000. I know it sounds really funny to say, but I realized something in my life that really changed it for me. And that's how I truly feel. And so that's why I dedicate so much of my time to trying to help pass on what I know,
Love it. So important. So I want to ask you about the backstory, because I was going to say, how did you get to where you are today? As you said, you didn't just wake up and go, oh, I'm going to be a speaker and share the stage with Richard Branson and Gary Vee, which I'm going to ask you about later. But let's hear about your story, the story behind the story. So tell us about your childhood and how that impacted you, and then how it landed you where you are today.
Sure. Oh, well, look, for me, it was really easy. I read an ebook and overnight I became successful. No, I just like to say, because I got interviewed the other day and someone said to me, oh, Aaron, you seem like you've exploded the last year or two, and, a couple of years, I think 3 or 4 years, what's it like? She said, what's it like to be an overnight success? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, overnight success. I said, put it this way. When I first started, I had hair, right? Here's proof. This is my little dude this is my man. I want to show you him. Here's someone who gave me this a long time ago. I had hair. See, this is proof. I've been doing it for a long time. So it's my little dude. But look, for me, my backstory, born and bred Melbourne. I grew up in a working class family that my parents separated when I was 2. I lived with my mum, and she was raising us. My father was, and still does, drugs, alcohol, all that fun stuff that we had to deal with as kids and go through, which is the reason why they parted. And look, for me, I wasn't meant to be here. I was never meant to be on this podcast, Emily. I was never meant to own a business. I was meant to be the kid that grew up in Furniture Gully, Melbourne, and probably ended up working stocking shelves the rest of my life. And I was never meant to be this guy that was here. So look, for me, I realized early on that I just didn't fit into the normal system. In fact, I was cleaning out something a couple of months back, and I posted this on my Instagram. I can't remember how long ago it was. And I found a report card from when I was in grade 1, and it said things like, Aaron needs to, what was it say? It said like, Aaron needs to not be as boisterous. This is grade 1, right? Aaron learns to, like, what do you, my daughter's in grade 1 now. That's what school's about, is being boisterous. What else did it say? I can't remember. It just was, I just didn't fit into the system. I didn't fit into the way in which they taught kids, back in the 80s. It wasn't the way that, I fit into the system. So look, for me, parents divorced. I lived with my mum for a couple of years, went to live with my dad, and did a few years, did my primary education there. We didn't have much, growing up. My father is, he was a guy that always tried new things. He was the guy that was, he came up with all these kind of ideas. The thing is, and I learned from him how to start businesses. It just, for him, he jumped a lot across the different things. So he just never, created the real success he could have in that. And we were doing a whole bunch of things. I remember some of the audience might remember that years ago, when you wanted soft drinks, you had to buy the crates. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember? sarsaparilla and all that shit that was in it. And so I remember when I first businesses, I was 8 years old. My stepbrother, he was about 13, I think, and we decided to become distributors of this, you know. So we were hustling down. My dad, this is so illegal, but we did this. My dad, he went to was it Video Easy or Blockbuster? I can't remember the time. And we bought, you know how the videos, like the ones for sale, were like $1 or whatever, like the old ones. And so we bought a bunch of those, right? And then we went door to door renting them. And so we would actually go and rent the bought videos, and then we would go and collect 25 cents overdue rent. And so, yeah, we were always trying to do different things. And that's, I think, where the entrepreneurial spirit started. And then I moved back with my mum. Look, it was challenging. I was 12 years old, sharing a bedroom with my mother in a 2-bedroom unit with my 2 other sisters in Dandenong, which was, it wasn't the greatest of places to grow up. Let's admit it. Yeah. And life wasn't great. You know, I just made a decision that I wanted to try and do things differently. I started working for other people. I worked at Macca's. I think I was fired from Macca's, I'm pretty sure. But I learned how to mop. Some of you guys have worked at Macca's know exactly what I'm doing. There's like a technique you have to learn. And so I remember working there and just working odd jobs, getting into sales. I sucked at sales. I was just a nice guy. I was like the information dude. You came to me for all the info, then you went elsewhere to go buy it. And I was just too nice, and I just sucked at sales, and I didn't like the way they used to teach it. It was just, it felt like dirty. It just felt like you'd make a sale and you needed to go home and have a shower, So I didn't like it. I didn't like it. So I went on a bit of a journey to try and learn to sell, and I created my own kind of ways of doing it. And then for me, that's kind of what sparked my whole teaching and training thing. And I started to use some consulting while I was still working back in, I think, 2003 maybe. And then it kind of started from there. So it became quite organic. But for me, my childhood, as you mentioned before, growing up, I didn't have a straight story. I didn't have went to uni, got a degree, started a business, did one business, made that business. I was trying lots and lots and lots of things, trying different businesses, and concurrently, as I was trying to build businesses, I really I didn't fall in love yet. It took me a while to fall in love with it, but I started to help other people, coaching, like speaking, and that kind of more consulting to begin with. And then about 2005, I think I did my very first, seminar. I didn't know what it was called, a seminar. And then it kind of, grew to where it is now. And I've been so blessed to have had the life that I've been able to have, and really just show people what I learned, because I think that there's lots of education out there. The challenge is that a lot of it, you've got to live through certain things to be able to share it in a certain way, and I think that for me, I've always taught what I do. I'm big on what I do is what I teach. What I do is what I teach. And so for me, my journey was unlike some people, and maybe some people that are listening to this went through that same journey where they had divorced parents, they had drugs and alcohol, they had a whole works. And I just made a decision. I didn't fit into the norm of working for other people, and I wanted to be more creative. I wanted to design my life and not live a life by default. And so, what wasn't an overnight success was a lot of hard work, and a lot of listening and learning. I learned a little while ago that the more you learn, the more you earn. And so for me, I fell in love with the idea of pushing myself to grow and learning.
Love it. I love it. There's a lot of gold there, because I think that there is this perception that like being an entrepreneur, everyone wants to be an entrepreneur now. Everyone wants to be a business owner. It's like cool. It's kind of like the new thing.
You and I though remember, right? Remember when entrepreneur, people were like, "Oh, you in between jobs? Like you don't have a job?"
Yeah, that's it.
And now everyone wants to be an entrepreneur. I know. Everyone
wants to be an entrepreneur, and everyone's like, "Oh, it must be so amazing having your own business." Like, God, they look at you, and obviously we only show certain parts of our lives and what we're doing. And, it's the old show reel on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. But people think that having your own business is amazing and it gives you so much freedom and it's awesome. But what they missed is how much sacrifice and hard work and fucking things up, and then like trying things and failing that goes into the years and years of having a business. I've had my business for 10 years, so I've run a HR consulting business, and like so many times I've wanted to give up. Like so many times I'm like, fuck this, I'm going to go and get a job and just not have this stress anymore. So has there been any moments like that for you in your business? And can you tell us how you got out of those?
Many, you name it, and it's happened to me. I have had business partners, we're going to conquer the world, let's do this, and then, it doesn't go well. I've had an accountant work for me for 4 years actually, and embezzle and take all of my tax money and spend it on his lifestyle. And then I've had to find tax money across all of my companies, including payroll tax, in a 90-day period, or else I was have to declare bankruptcy to pay for it. I have been through everything I think I could probably imagine. And because I just went so hard at life, I experience things very rapidly. And I think as you experience things rapidly, sometimes you grow rapidly, but sometimes you fall rapidly. And when you go that hard, I've always been like that. I've always gone hard for me because I wanted to grow, I wanted to build. And I've absolutely doubted working. I left my job that I left before I decided to go full tilt for myself. I had side hustles and things that I was doing while I was employed, but I remember leaving. My last pay packet was like $200,000 plus bonuses and commissions. I'm in my early 20s getting paid that kind of money with no house, which means disposable income, parties, friends loved it because they could come party with me. And I left the comfort of that to go and start something. In my first year of doing that, I remember I saved a chunk of money to go start a new businesses, and I wasted all of it. I remember spending about $150,000, I think, in the first 18 months of trying to this business and then that business and then this business and then that business, waste. And I sat there going, what am I going to do? I didn't have no assets. My girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, I remember sitting down convincing her to get a third mortgage on her home, right? She had an apartment, third mortgage, right? To get 15 grand out of this thing, right? And here's what happened. I had been trying to be an entrepreneur for about 5-6 years. And because at the time, Emily, I was arrogant. I thought I knew everything. I wasted so much money going, fuck this. I don't want to listen to anybody else. I didn't read books. I hated reading books. There was no such thing as, podcasts, I don't think were a thing then. YouTube was not even growing then. So I was like, I don't need to learn. And then I realized with my tail between my legs, I lost almost all the money I had. I was sitting there working from home, living with my wife in her apartment back in Dandenong again. I had to go back again. And we lived between a drug dealer and a drug user, and life was shit. Life was shit. I went from this corporate hotshot to breaking every record in a company, around sales, management, and growth, and and working different places around the world, to working in an apartment at home, at my wife's apartment, owning no assets, no money. And I decided that I needed to do something different. And that was the moment that I convinced my wife. And my wife's I want to let you listeners know this. My wife is total left brainer, non-risk taker, right? I'm talking teacher, wants to work with the government, and doing a PhD in education, no risk taker. So I'm like, she married me of all people, right? And so, oh, totally, right? Totally. So I like to say, because some people think I've got this kind of wife who's, waiting in the wings to come and, give me a kiss on the cheek and be my plus one everywhere. I'm like, no, I married a very powerful, smart woman that really is my opposite. And I say that because she's not a risk taker, and I'm taking risks, and I was taking risks. And so for her to give me 15 grand from her house to go, and $15,000 was to go and learn. I remember spending money on courses and speakers and online programs and going to seminars. And I remember sitting there, and I had to go through person after person after person, like going on, like listening to people that I don't gel with. I'm just like, this person's a wanker, that person's a this, and then eventually I hit a few people I started to kind of go, kind of makes sense. And then I just started to learn and then apply that into my businesses and then start to.
Who were those people that like really resonated with you, that you were like, that helped you get to the next level, just so you can share with the listeners?
Oh, look, you can't go past Tony Robbins. You can't go past. I remember sitting in a Tony Robbins event in 2000 and maybe, I don't remember, 2004, maybe 2005. I'm sitting at a Tony Robbins event. He was one of the guys that changed it for me. And then I watched him for a few years, and then, sharing the stage with him, I think, which is in 2015 or something, 10 years later, from being in the to being on stage with him, sharing in the same event. For me, he was somebody that showed me, from a personal development standpoint, to start. You can do more, you can be more, you can have more. He opened it up for me. And then, for me, it wasn't, other than the Tony, it wasn't like this marketing guru or that. It was just, I just tried to read as much as I could. Like I'd read books, I would read blog posts, I would go to little small events, I would watch as many things as I could. And then bit by bit, I started to be inspired, and I started to learn. And then what happened for me is, I think why I fell in love with it, Emily, is because it started to turn on my creative juices and get me thinking. So they might say, here's how you sell. You do this and this and this. And I'd go, okay, I do agree with this and this, but I wonder if you do this and this and this as well. So I've got my 5-part thing that I got sparked from listening to somebody else speak about it. Does that make sense to you? So
it does.
Tony was a big one for me, but also, I've been a Richard Branson fan for a very long time. And so to be able to work with him was a huge deal for me. In fact, if you want to know the story, if we've got time, I'll tell you how embarrassing it was the first time I met him. But
I love it. I was going to ask you about that. So I wanted to ask you about Richard Branson and obviously Gary Vee, because I love Gary Vee, because he's just like so honest and raw and authentic. Yeah. But I want to hear about Richard Branson, because I've met quite a few people who've met him, and they all kind of say the same thing. So I'm interested in what you're going to say.
Yeah, so for me, I remember I've loved him forever, right? I've been a big fanboy of his, read all of his books. I loved Richard because for a guy to be able to live on an island, be married for 40-something years, raise 2 kids that are switched on and loving and caring, and have 400 odd businesses and brands and companies, and to donate so much to charity. I look at that and I go, that to me is a total success. You know what I mean?
And I've also heard that he is that he has ADHD or is dyslexic as well.
Absolutely, yeah. He's badly dyslexic. So for me, like when it comes to success, I don't look at someone and go, wow, that guy drives a Lamborghini and I want to kind of do that. I don't fall into that stuff. For me, it's about it's a life by design and not by default. And to me, Richard personifies that. Like, I love that we've had the crisis recently and everyone said Richard's fucked. Everyone said that.
I've heard that.
A week ago, Forbes goes, he's out of it, because he had every exposed thing you can think of. All the business that he has are exposed. He gave everybody a masterclass on leadership during this time, a masterclass. He handled the situation so well, cross-collateralized his home to go and raise capital. Like, think about the risks that this guy takes in this crisis. And he's got gyms, entertainment, cruises, travel. He's exposed to the hills, airlines. He's exposed to right across this, but he's finding his way through this. So for me, he was definitely a big thing for me. I studied him, and I'm a big believer in life success as a whole. I've got friends of mine that have all the money in the world and are unhappy. Yeah. I've got friends of mine that are happy and can't afford to send their kids to the school they want to, can't afford to give the medical treatment they want to, can't afford to go out there and pursue their passions because they're too busy working in a job they fucking hate. So for me, I'm like, there's got to be somewhere where everything comes together and you can create total success. So I looked at Richard. I liked that about Richard. What I liked about Tony is that Tony just doesn't do events and teach you. He also is worth $500 million and has 50 odd companies that he runs behind the scenes as well. I like that. I like that he was kind of doing what he teaches as well. So I fell in love with these kind of guys. But to tell you about Richard, so there was an event that someone wanted me to speak at. Like, Aaron, come and speak at this event. coming up in Melbourne at Hisense Arena, and I was consulting for the business that was involved in it, putting it on. And I was like, no, I'm busy. But then they're like, Richard's speaking. I'm like, I'm fucking there.
I'm there. I'm
there.
free.
Yeah. Let me free up my calendar. Oh, there's nothing on, right? So I was like, let's make this happen. And so they asked me to speak there. Now, at the time, I was still speaking. I'd been speaking since 2005, but I wasn't the main stage speaker. I wasn't the big, the keynote and all that kind of stuff. So they said, come and speak. Richard was speaking in front of an arena of 7,000 people. They're like, we want you to speak, but you're going to speak on this little side stage with 150 people. I'm like, I don't give a shit. You put me on the car park as long as you give me a badge that says speaker. And so I did it. Now, here was my plan. My plan was to sneak my ass backstage and meet Sir Richard Branson. That was my plan. Yeah. What I didn't know is that they have different levels of a speaker. So I had speaker, and they may as well write down shitty speaker down the bottom. So my shitty speaker badge didn't get me in all access. So I had to negotiate my way backstage. So anyway, I got to meet him at this event, and I've worked with him a few times since then. But the first time, and this is what happened. I was walking towards him. Right, I get into this room, and he's a nice guy. I'm walking towards him, and he's surrounded by a couple of his proxies, and I'm walking towards the guy, and he kind of sees me, so he goes to sort of make way to maybe shake my hand after sussed out I'm not a threat, and I go to walk towards him, right. And I'm walking towards him, and in my head, just as I'm walking towards him, I'm thinking in my head, "Oh my gosh, I'm gonna meet Sir Richard Branson. Sir Richard Branson is amazing." I'm like, hey, when you first meet somebody, you're sussing out, are they taller than you thought, shorter than you thought? You're placing them. But I'm zoned in on this guy, walking towards him. Just as I'm walking towards him, Emily, in my head, I'm going, I'm gonna meet Sir Richard Branson. I'm gonna meet Sir Richard Branson, and I stopped in my head, and I slowed down my pace of walking towards him, because guess what happened? In my head, I went, oh my gosh, I'm going to meet Sir Richard Branson. And I was 2 meters away. And here's the reason why I slowed down. Because I was like, I'm about to meet a sir. Do I bow?
Do I bow?
Do you do that? I didn't know. And so I'm going, shit, what do I call him? Do I bow? What do I do? And so I'm like, commit, whatever you're going to do. You're a meter away. So I'm strafing towards him and trying to slow my ascent towards him. And thinking in my head, fuck, what am I going to do? And so I get closer to him, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to bow. Do I not bow? Because this is going to be embarrassing. So I go to shake his hand, and I kind of half committed, and I half bowed.
Oh God, so embarrassing. Did he laugh?
It was so. Well, the problem was he moved his head close to mine, and so I almost headbutted Sir Richard Branson, and it was so embarrassing. So I shook his and kind of went like this, and it was so embarrassing. And that was the first time I met Sir Richard. Now, Zoom for the next time I met him, which was I can't remember, a year or two later or something, because I got to work with him a couple of times. And I said, oh, do you remember we met once? And it was so kind. He said, I'm so sorry, I don't remember. I'm like, don't worry, you don't want to remember.
Yes,
it's totally
that's
fine.
okay.
Totally fine. So it was really embarrassing. But so your audience knows you don't have to bow when you meet a sir.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. If I meet a sir, I do not have to bow. Now,
but you know what? Legitimately, wasn't that a legitimate concern? Because how disrespectful would it be if I didn't bow and I'm supposed to bow? So I've never met a sir before. So that was a bit embarrassing. But yeah, he was definitely someone that changed it for me.
Love it. Aaron, I know that you have a commitment after this, so we might leave it there. If you've got one parting piece of advice for our listeners who are really trying to tap into their purpose and their passion in life, what would it be?
Lots of advice. Here's probably some parting advice I'd give you. I think that I'm not going to talk about strategies, because I think that strategies come after what I'm about to share with you. I think that where I find people go wrong, Emily, is they make too many decisions. They say, I'm going to do this. That's it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do this. And then they think once they make a decision that suddenly their life is going to kind of line up and everything's going to move forward to help them to achieve their purpose and to achieve their passions and to go and chase down, profit. But the reality in life, I've learned something very, really simple. And it's this: you can make a decision. It's like the first step. Make a decision. So let's say your listeners making a decision like, I really want to start a business. Like, okay, cool. I want to start a business. And then the decision is, let's say for you, you're in HR, your decision 10 years ago was to start a business. Then they have to say, okay, my next decision is I want to go from let's say you're a business right now as a $200,000 a year business, right? Your decision is I want to go and turn this into $1 million business. Okay, so that means that you want to 5x the business, right? From 200,000, you want to get to the kind of the million. You want to 5x your business. So that's a decision. So everyone does that. Everyone kind of calculates that. They write it down. They put it up on their fucking boards and say, I'm going to do this. But I think the missing step here, if I can give a couple of my one parting thing, which goes together, is step one is to make your decision on what you want in life. But that step two here, Emily, is that once you make a decision, here's where a lot of people go wrong. They forget what I'm about to say and they don't consider this. You have to ask yourself, the decision that you're making, is it a commitment? If you want to 5x your business, is it a commitment? Now you might just say, yeah, of course it is. Before you say, yeah, of course it is, let me tell you what a commitment actually is. Let me ask you if this changes your mind. A commitment, Emily, is saying, I want to go from a $200,000 a year business to $1 million a year business, and I'll do it in the next 24 months. Okay, that's a decision. Let me ask you, let me tell you what a commitment is. A commitment is a question. And the question is, what are you prepared to endure to 5x your business?
Yeah.
Now, if you start giving me caveats, if you start giving me addendums in your contract of success, if you say, Aaron, I want to 5x my business, but not if it takes me away from Sunday with my kid, not if it means that I can't drop off little fucking Harry to daycare at, not if I have to do social media. Oh my gosh, there's arseholes on social media. Well, then you know what? Then go fuck yourself with your plans. How does that sound? Right? Yeah. Because you're not going to be successful. People make decisions all the time. I'm sick to death of decisions. All decisions do is they create dopamine in your brain that gives you this idea to say, oh my gosh, I'm going to get somewhere. Oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to do this. And you live off this dopamine of I'm going to make a decision, right? It's like if I said to you, do you want to go on a holiday? So that sounds great. I said to you, okay, make that decision here. Where are you going to go? You go, okay, Aaron, after restrictions, March 2021, I'm going to the Bahamas. And you start to visualize that and plan that in your head and make that decision. You get all of these endorphins rolling. You may all, you get this dopamine going because you feel excited and you live off this dopamine that you feed yourself on these decisions that are never going to occur because you don't make a commitment. And a commitment for me is this: what are you prepared to endure? Because if you can only answer that with one thing, and that one thing is whatever it takes.
Yeah.
If someone comes to me and says, I want to go out there and 5x my business, you've got to tell me you're going to do whatever it takes. No caveats. Because if someone comes to me and they say, Aaron, I want to 5x my business, I'll say, cool, we can do that. Because all the fad out there, so many speakers, oh, you want to 10x your business, you can be in a jet, you can do this bullshit. You can't have any of that unless you make a commitment. I'll tell you this, Emily, at times I've had to be the world's worst dad.
Yeah.
At times I've had to be the world's worst husband. You go back on my timeline 5-6 years ago when I was trying to go out there and help more people. There was 1 year, Emily, where I was in hotel rooms in other countries. 121 days out of 365, I slept in a bed in a hotel room in another country because I was trying to build my empire. I was trying to go out there and help other people as well as going out there and build my VC business. Did I enjoy that? No. I had like a 3-month-old at home. My wife didn't enjoy that, but we made a commitment that I was going to do this. And did I hate it at times? Absolutely. When people say, oh my gosh, Aaron, you got to spend a couple of months at home when your son was born, when your daughter was born. You know what? That was because of the decisions and the commitments that I made years before that. So you've got to make a decision. So in your head, you go, what's my decision? I'm going to start a business. I'm going to grow. Okay, great. Then run it through what I call the commitment filter. The commitment filter is, are you going to do whatever it takes? And if you try and give me caveats in your success, then go back to your dopamine. Go back to your decisions, right? But if you're going to commit and say, I'm going to do whatever it takes without any caveats, right? Whatever's in your moral and ethical guidelines, obviously, but you're going to commit to do whatever it takes, then the third thing you need to take is massive and immediate action.
Absolutely.
MAIA. Want to know why? Because too many people do this. Oh my gosh. Like some of your listeners right now probably taking notes. And then they go like this. I'm going to take this down, write it down. I'm going to start a business. Perfect. I'm going to start a business. Then they go and write down, I'm going to start a business. Today's date, right? I'm going to write down today's it's Friday. Now my to-do list is Friday, start a business. Now I feel good because I wrote that down. But then what happens? What happens is Monday starts and then you go, new sheet of paper. And so suddenly my to-do list is now gone, right? That is forgot about. But I felt good because I made a decision when I listened to a podcast. Bullshit. You have to make a commitment, which means you have to say, listen, things are going to have to change my world to get there. You might have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, right? You have a family, you have kids like I do. It's really hard to work out at night when you have young kids. I'll just put it out there. So I have to work at 4:30 in the morning before my household wakes up. Do I like waking up at 4:30? No. But I make a commitment that I'm going to look after my physical, mental, emotional, spiritual state to be able to go out there and be the person I want to be the father I want to be the businessman I want to be the educator I want to be. So massive and immediate action means you take action massively, which means outside of your comfort zone, because everyone has a different level of a comfort zone. Immediately now, right? Massive and immediate action to what you want. So you don't wait, you take action now. So if there's one thing I can give your listeners, number one, make a decision. What do you want to do? Cool, sounds good. Whatever the decision may be. Number two, run it through the commitment filter. What are you prepared to endure? Because hand on heart, if you're not prepared to endure some of the shit you're going to have to go through to get there, then you're not going to build the business. You're not going to build the life. You're not going to build the legacy that you want to have. You know, people forget this. Let's say you want to go from, let's say you got a business, you want to go from $1 million to 2 million, right? That is a 100% increase in your business. You with me? If you've got a $9 million business and you want to increase it by $1 million to a $10 million business, that is an 11% increase.
Yeah.
Think about that. Think about that. You've got to go 100% in to get an extra $1 million to go from 1 to 2. But you've only got to go 11% in to go from 9 to 10 million, but you get the same amount of money. Like you have to learn. That's basic math. You have to compound. You have to compound. So the start of it is always going to be hard. It's always going to be hard. You want to get abs and you got, you know, a big midsection, you're not going to be able to see them. But eventually when you can see them, you're going to go, oh my gosh, I want to do more sit-ups because I can see them crunch. And it gets easier and it gets easier. But you got to be prepared to go through the shit to get to the point where you can start to see the results. So decision, commitment, and take MAIA. You are wasting your life. And that's the biggest thing I need to tell anybody, because it applies to everybody. Business, life, whatever you want in your life, you are wasting life. And if anyone watching or listening to this has kids, that's one of the things that I realize that life goes quick is when they just get so big and so heavy and you're like, oh my gosh, you're 7 years old now, you know, you're so much heavier than when you were 1, you know, and just to see them, you know, remind you that life goes really quick. So if there's one thing I can give you, it's decision, commitment, and massive and immediate action, because that, Emily, is what changed my life.
Absolutely love it. That is awesome advice, and I agree with all of that. Aaron, thank you so much for sharing all of that with us and your wisdom and your time. Really, really appreciate it. It was amazing to hear your story, and that last piece of advice, that's I really need to hear that today because I'm feeling a little bit unmotivated. So you fired me up, and I'm sure you fired up a lot of the other people who are listening and watching. So thank you so much. And
thank you for having me on having the podcast. I think that more people need to do this. More people need to share and try and spread the message. So well done for you for dedicating your time to try and help other people as well. And thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
No problems at all. If people want to find more about you, where is the best place to find you?
Up on at Aaron Sansoni is our handle. Come and follow us. Send me a DM. Tell me what you thought of the podcast. We'll always love to hang out and connect with you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, and I hope you have a great weekend. It's Friday here, so let's enjoy stage 5 lockdown at home. But anyway, at least we've got families and each other.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.